Okay, picture this. It's the 6th century, standing in the middle of the Arabian
Yeah,
Peninsula.
right.
And you look around. What do you see? It's sand. It's heat. It's isolation. To any outsider, this is a really harsh, unforgiving landscape.
For sure. And it's inhabited mostly by nomadic tribes, right? Polytheists
Yeah,
worshiping all sorts of local gods. It just looks like the edge of the world.
it really does.
Yeah.
But then you zoom out just a tiny bit on the map.
And you realize this peninsula is basically the backyard of two massive ancient superpowers. To the east, you've got the Persian Sasanian Empire.
And to the west, the Christian Byzantine Empire. These are the giants of the age. I mean, huge armies, complex governments, centuries of history.
Exactly. And if you had told a general in Constantinople or maybe a noble in the Persian capital
Yeah.
that this desert backyard, this place they barely ever thought about, was about to birth a civilization that would swallow both of their empires.
And not just that, but span from Spain all the way to India.
I mean, they wouldn't have just laughed. They would have thought you were, hallucinating.
It was completely impossible, geopolitically speaking. And yet, that's exactly what we're going to unpack today in this deep dive.
Yep. We've got a huge stack of sources here, historical analyses, primary accounts, timelines, and our mission is to track this flow of power over 1,000 years.
We're not just reciting dates here.
No. We're watching a torch get passed from Arabs to Persians to Turks, and really looking at the sheer resilience of a civilization that just survived one catastrophe after another.
It's an incredible story of survival.
Yeah.
So let's light the fuse. Where does it start?
It starts with a spark. In Mecca, around 570 CE, with the birth of Muhammad.
That's the catalyst.
That's the catalyst. And the sources all emphasize the context. He's born into this fractured tribal society. He begins receiving the revelations that become the Quran.
But he faces intense opposition in Mecca, right?
Yeah.
Which forces him to migrate.
He has to go to Medina, the Hijra. And that's so crucial because it marks the start of the Islamic calendar. It's the moment the community goes from just a group of believers to a real political entity.
So by the time of his death in 632, he's done more than just establish a religion.
Oh, much more. He's done the impossible. He's united all these warring Arab tribes into a single Muslim nation.
But here's where it gets really interesting for this deep dive. Because usually, when a founder that charismatic dies, and he held all the power, religious, political, military,
The whole thing just falls apart. The tribes go back to fighting each other.
and it almost did. Which brings us to the core tension that's going to define the next 1,000 years, the crisis of succession.
Who's in charge now? Muhammad didn't leave a clear written will or, name an heir in a way that satisfied everybody.
So the question is immediately, who sits in the chair?
And this first era is what the sources called the Rashidun, the rightly guided caliphs. A caliph just means successor.
And the first four, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, they were chosen how? Exactly.
It was essentially based on their closeness to the prophet, their personal merit, a kind of peer selection among his closest companions.
And even with all this confusion over who should lead, the expansion during this time is, well, it's absurd.
It's an explosion. In just about 30 years, this new state expands from Iran to North Africa. They completely crush the Sasanian Empire, that giant we talked about.
Gone.
And they strip the Byzantines of their wealthiest provinces. It's a rapid, colossal process.
But I want to pause here, because it's so easy to romanticize this period as some seamless golden age where everyone was united.
Oh, it was anything but. The military success on the outside was masking some immense turmoil on the inside.
How volatile are we talking?
Well, just look at the numbers. Out of those first 4 rightly guided caliphs, 3 were assassinated.
Wait, 3 out of 4. That's a 75% mortality rate for the top job.
Exactly. It was an incredibly dangerous position. And all this violence, it stems from that original question, who has the right to rule?
This is it. This is where the Great Divide happens, the Sunni-Shia split.
We hear about it constantly in the news today, but it starts right here. It's a disagreement on legitimacy.
So break it down for us.
Well, one group believed leadership belonged specifically to Ali Muhammad's cousin and son-in-law, and to his direct bloodline. They become the Shi'at Ali, or the Shia.
And the other group?
The other group, who become the Sunnis, accepted the community's choice of leaders, even if they weren't from that direct bloodline.
So it begins as a political fight like a boardroom battle. And over time, it just morphs into this huge theological schism.
Precisely. And that friction just explodes in 661. The 4th caliph, Ali, is assassinated. The experiment with meritocracy is over, and power is seized by the Umayyad family.
Okay, so this is a massive vibe shift for the whole empire.
Huge. First, the capital moves. It goes from the Arabian desert all the way up to Damascus in Syria, and the whole system of leadership changes. No more choosing leaders.
It becomes a dynasty.
Father to son, kingship.
And the Umayyads were very Arab-focused, weren't they?
Very. It was an Arab empire ruling over a lot of non-Arabs, but you have to give it to them. They were effective expansionists. They pushed the borders all the way to the Atlantic Ocean.
They cross into Spain and Portugal?
They do. But they hit a wall, the Battle of Tours.
In modern-day France.
Right, they run into the Franks.
Yeah.
And that defeat basically stops the Islamization of Western Europe. If that one battle goes the other way, European history looks very, very different.
And while they're conquering, they're also building these incredible landmarks, like the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. But that internal tension, the one about the prophet's bloodline.
It did not go away, it just festered. And it all came to a head at the Battle of Karbala. The Umayyad forces kill Hussein, who is the son of Ali.
The prophet's own grandson.
Yes. And the sources are clear, this is the formative trauma for the Shia. It solidifies their opposition. It turns a political problem into this powerful story of martyrdom and resistance.
And that resistance eventually boils over.
Which brings us to 750 CE,
Yeah.
the Abbasid Revolution. And honestly, the way the sources describe this, it sounds like something straight out of Game of Thrones.
It really does. The Umayyads are invited to a reconciliation banquet by this new rising power, the Abbasids.
And let me guess, it doesn't go well for them.
They were massacred. The Abbasids, who claimed they were descended from Muhammad's uncle, just wiped out the entire Umayyad ruling class. They literally hunted them down.
To make sure no rivals remained, except for one guy who escaped to Spain, but that's a whole other deep dive.
So the Abbasids take the torch, and again, they move the capital.
They build a brand new city from scratch, Baghdad. And this is where the Golden Age really, truly begins. Baghdad becomes the center of the world, the biggest, richest, most advanced city on the planet at the time.
This is the era of the House of Wisdom.
Yes. While Europe is in what we call the Dark Ages, Baghdad is translating Aristotle, Plato. They're inventing algebra al-jab, making these huge leaps in medicine, optics, astronomy. It's an intellectual boom.
I love the little detail in the sources about their diplomacy. The Abbasids had relations with Charlemagne in Europe.
They even sent him an elephant.
Can you just imagine an elephant walking through 8th century Germany? That must have been an incredible sight. But it shows the reach of this empire.
It does, but we have to look under the hood here. Because on the surface, you have this amazing golden age, but the sources point to a kind of secret reality.
The puppet master reality.
Yeah. The empire just got too big to manage from the center, and the Abbasids started relying on non-Arabs for their military and their bureaucracy. First Persians, and later on, Turks.
So the Arab dominance starts to fade.
Rapidly. The Abbasid Caliph is sitting on the throne in Baghdad. He's technically the leader of all Muslims. But in reality, he's losing his grip. Local dynasties are popping up and basically treating him like a rubber stamp.
So give us an example of this power shift.
Okay, take the Buyids. Around 945, they're a Persian dynasty, and here's the kicker. They're Shia.
Hold on. So a Persian Shia army marches into Baghdad and takes over the Sunni capital.
That's exactly what happened. But they don't kill the caliph. They're smart. They realize he's too important as a religious symbol, so they keep him on the throne.
But they strip him of all real power.
All of it. He can't command armies. He can't set taxes. He's basically a figurehead, a prisoner in his own palace.
And it gets more complicated, doesn't it?
It gets worse for the Sunni world, because over in Cairo, you have the Fatimids rising up, another Shia dynasty who trace their line back to Fatima, the prophet's daughter.
But they don't play the puppet game.
No, they declare their own caliphate. So now, the Muslim world is totally split. You've got a rival caliphate in North Africa and a puppet caliph in Baghdad being controlled by Persians.
It's fascinating. The narrative we often get in the West is of this unified Islamic empire marching in lockstep.
But by the year 1000, it's incredibly fractured. It's a multicultural patchwork. And just when it seems like the Persians are running the show, a new player enters the game.
The Turks.
The Seljuks. They're Sunni nomads from Central Asia. Tough warriors, incredible mounted archers. They sweep in around 1055 and take Baghdad.
And do they free the caliph?
Well, they kick out the Shia Buyids, so in a way they save Sunni Islam. But they do not give the caliph his power back. They take the title of sultan, which literally means holder of power.
So now the caliph is the religious face, But the Sultan holds the sword.
Exactly. And the Seljuks turn their gaze west, towards the Byzantines.
The Battle of Manzikert, 1071.
A huge, pivotal moment. They smash the Byzantine army, it breaks their border defense, and opens up all of Anatolia to Turkic migration.
This is the beginning of modern Turkey.
This is it. It's what transforms Anatolia from Greek Christian to Turkic Muslim over the next few centuries.
So we've got internal strife, we have Turks taking over, and then in 1095, the neighbors come knocking.
The Crusades. European forces arrive to liberate the holy places, and they take advantage of how fractured the Muslim world is.
The local rulers were too busy fighting each other.
Exactly. So the Crusaders managed to take Jerusalem and set up these little states along the coast.
What I find so interesting in the reading is the perspective shift. We usually hear this story from the European side. How did the Muslims view these invaders?
Initially, honestly, with the disdain. You have to remember, cities like Baghdad had streetlights, hospitals, huge libraries. To them, these Franks were unwashed, uneducated barbarians.
They saw them as a nuisance.
A dangerous nuisance, for sure, but culturally inferior. They were shocked by the crude medicine and lack of hygiene. But eventually, the Muslim world does find a unifier.
Saladin.
A Kurdish leader, yes. He manages to unite Egypt and Syria. He ends that rival Fatimid rule in Cairo, and then he retakes Jerusalem in 1187.
Saladin is a massive figure. But even the Crusades, as traumatic as they are, they seem like a border skirmish compared to what was coming from the east.
The Crusades were a problem. What came next was an apocalypse. The 13th century, the Mongols,
Genghis Khan,
and his descendants. I mean, we are talking about the largest contiguous land empire in history, a war machine the world had never seen before.
and sources point to a fatal mistake made by the Muslim rulers.
The Khwarezmian Empire, which controlled Iran at the time, made what has to be the worst diplomatic mistake in history. They executed a caravan of Mongol merchants and envoys.
They poke the bear.
They poked the dragon, Genghis Khan took it personally, and the response was just total annihilation. Cities were leveled, populations were massacred, they just swept west.
And by 1258, his grandson, Hulagu Khan, is at the gates of Baghdad.
And the caliph, maybe he didn't realize how much the world had changed. He refused to surrender.
And that is the end of an era.
It was total destruction. They breached the walls, they burned the House of Wisdom. The accounts say the Tigris River ran black with the ink from all the books.
And red with the blood of the scholars.
The golden age of Islam ends right there, in smoke and ash.
There's that specific, horrific detail about the death of the caliph.
It's gruesome. The Mongols had a taboo against spilling royal blood on the earth. They thought it brought bad luck. So, to execute the caliph without spilling his blood,
They rolled him up in a carpet.
and had their horses trample him to death.
That image. The leader of the faithful, crushed into the mud inside a rug. It really feels like the end of the story.
To the people living through it, it felt like the end of the world. They thought Judgment Day had come. And the Mongols just kept pushing on towards Egypt. It seemed like nothing could stop them.
Except for the Mamluks.
The slave soldiers.
Explain this concept, because it sounds like a complete contradiction.
It's a really unique institution. Mamluks were typically Turkic boys, bought as slaves, but then trained as elite, top-tier warriors. They were raised in the barracks, so their loyalty was to each other, not to some tribe or family.
And in Egypt, they'd actually overthrown their masters and seized power.
Exactly. So you have this military junta of ex-slaves running Egypt. And in 1260, at the Battle of Ain Jalut, they face the Mongol horde.
And they win.
They do the impossible, they win, they stop the Mongol advance. It is arguably one of the most important battles in world history. If they lose, the Mongols probably sweep across North Africa, maybe even into Europe. But the Mamluks hold the line.
And they do something very clever to solidify their rule, right? They bring a survivor of the Abbasid family to Cairo.
Right, a shadow caliphate 2.0. They need that religious legitimacy, so they prop up this Abbasid puppet just to say, hey, we have the caliph's blessing. It was purely ceremonial, but it kept the lineage going.
But the story doesn't end there, because a really strange thing happens to the Mongols who stayed in the Middle East.
This is the twist historians love. The conquerors get conquered by the culture. The Ilkhanids, the descendants of Hulagu, the guy who burned Baghdad, they eventually convert to Islam.
No way.
They do. They start rebuilding cities. They become patrons of Persian art and architecture. The destroyers become the builders.
It just shows the resilience of the civilization. It absorbed this massive shock, and in the end, it converted the shock troops.
And that paves the way for the final act of our timeline, the Gunpowder empires.
This is where we see the rise of the Ottomans.
Yeah. starting as just a small Turkic warrior state in Anatolia under a leader named Osman. And they just grow and grow, steadily eating away at what's left of the Byzantine Empire.
Until 1453.
The conquest of Constantinople. Sultan Mehmed II takes the city that had stood for 1,000 years. It becomes Istanbul. And that's really the end of the Roman Empire and the rise of a new Islamic superpower.
And then in 1517, the Ottomans turned south.
Under Sultan Selim the Grim, they conquer Cairo, they defeat the Mamluks, and this is crucial. Selim takes the title of caliph for himself.
So the torch is fully passed. It started with an Arab in Medina, went to Damascus, then Baghdad, survived in the shadows in Cairo.
And now it rests with a Turkish sultan in Istanbul.
And the Ottoman Empire becomes the dominant Sunni power for the next 400 years, all the way to World War I.
Oh.
But they weren't alone, were they? By the 16th century, you have three giants.
The three gunpowder empires. You have the Ottomans in the West. You have the Safavids in Iran, who established the modern Shia identity of that country, creating a rival pole of power.
And the Mughals in India.
Right. Who oversee this massive cultural synthesis of Islam and Hinduism. Stability returns, but the center of gravity has just completely shifted.
The Arab monopoly on power is long gone.
Centuries ago, it's now a global, multi-ethnic civilization anchored by Turks and Persians using gunpowder to maintain these huge centralized states.
So looking back at this entire millennium, from the silence of the desert to the cannons of Istanbul, what's a big takeaway for you from this deep dive?
For me, it's about that mission we started with, understanding the flow. History isn't static. The Islamic world isn't one thing. It's a story of absorption. It absorbed Persian bureaucracy, Greek philosophy, Turkic warfare, Mongol brutality.
And it synthesized them into something new every time.
Exactly. And it leaves us with a really provocative thought from the source material, which is that brutality and cultural flourishing are not mutually exclusive. The Mongols destroyed, then they rebuilt. The Timurids were cruel, but they created stunning art. Civilization doesn't move in a straight, peaceful line.
It evolves through these messy, violent, yet creative collisions.
That's the one.
That is a lot to chew on. It makes you wonder. If you look at the shifts in power today, the collisions happening right now, which part of the cycle are we living in?
Now that sounds like a question for a future deep dive.
Indeed. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Until next time.